Unit 7, Section 2, Growth of Big Business. Today we're going to talk about the growth of railroads. Railroads were the #1 industry in the United States. As powerful as John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil Company was, Andrew Carnegie's U.S. Steel, J.P. Morgan's banks, Leland Stanford's Western Railroads, Cornelius Vanderbilt's Eastern Railroads were more powerful. The difference is railroads existed all over the country, and railroads did not compete head-to-head with each other. They tended to control whole entire geographic regions. So, for example, Leland Stanford controlled most of the Western railroads. Cornelius Vanderbilt controlled many of the Eastern railroads, and so therefore no single robber baron dominated the whole entire industry as they did with oil and as they did with steel. Nonetheless, railroads became the largest and most valuable industry in America. The mileage tripled during and after the Civil War. So from the period of the early 1800s until the Civil War, the railroad mileage increased 6 times from 1900 until the period of the Civil War. Responsible for a large increase of that was the building of the nation's first transcontinental railroad. And that transcontinental railroad extended from Omaha, Nebraska to San Francisco, California. You can see it here on the map, how long this was. It consisted of 2 separate railroads. The railroad that was built from the east back to the west was referred to as the Union Pacific Railroad. And the one that was built from the west back towards the east was referred to as the Central Pacific Railroad. Both railroads met at a location that became known as Promontory Point, Utah. The purpose of the Transcontinental Railroad was to move goods from the manufacturing centers in the east, finished products, out to the west, and vice versa. Goods could be transported from the farms back into the east to feed the people living in the urban areas in the cities. And so railroads played an important role in manifest destiny in the expansion of our country from the Atlantic to the Pacific Railroad. Another important concept that you need to understand from the building of the railroads was immigration. Immigration begins to cause problems in our country, specifically the types of immigrants that are coming in after the Civil War to build these railroads. 2 different groups that were brought in to build the railroad on the west coast were the Chinese. Because the west coast of the United States is closer to Asia, most of the immigrants that are going to build the Central Pacific part of the railroad are going to be the Chinese. And they're going to face a tremendous amount of discrimination because they're willing to work for very low wages for these railroads. In the east, it's going to be the Irish. And notice that they're all white men, which you typically would believe they would not be discriminated against, but they were. And the #1 reason is because they were Catholic. And Protestants who had come with the old immigrants from Northern and Western Europe before the Civil War persecuted these new immigrants that came to America, mainly because of their religious beliefs and the fact that they, along with the Chinese, would work for very low wages on these railroads. This led to a concept known as Nativism, which is a fear or hatred of foreigners. The best example of this type of discrimination occurred with the Chinese Exclusion Act passed by Congress in 1882. It outlawed all Chinese immigration to the United States until the middle of World War II. So this discrimination lasted for almost 60 years in our country. This concludes Unit 7, Section 2, the growth of railroads and the nativism that resulted.